Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to the Sensitive Stability BPD Live Show. My name is Kevin Reynolds. For those of you who don't know me, I am a BPD survivor and I am a BPD coach. So each morning we talk about a different topic related to borderline personality disorder, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. US EST. Today we are going to talk about the fears. We're going to talk about the fears. We're going to talk about what makes it so scary in terms of getting better. Because let's be honest, none of us want to suffer, right? None of us want to suffer. That's the part that makes other people confused, because including mental health professionals. They say, well, just don't behave that way. Why are you acting like this? And if you knew why you were acting like this, you wouldn't do it, right? And you don't want to do it because you don't want to look like you look. You don't want other people to see what they're seeing. And believe me, I know it sucks to hear, but every time you have an episode, every time you split, the rest of the world is forced to look at you differently. And you're forced to look at yourself differently too in those moments. That is the truth. You eventually become somebody who becomes used to it. And you also start to expect failure. Because each time we mess up, we see it as failure, which is yet another hurdle. So then why don't we get better? Why don't we try? Why don't we try to do anything different? You know, why? It's because of fear. It's because we are terrified of basically anything that we have to do to get better. And I hate that that's the truth. I hate that that's the truth because it means, first off, there's a million fears. And secondly, it curates a world where it puts us so far away from getting better. So until you start identifying the fears and then breaking them down, you will unfortunately remain in the same place because it's more comfortable. And the comfort, that part's, yes, mental awareness talk, for sure. Everybody should be aware of what is preventing them from making or seeing a better life, though. And there are things that you can identify, and you can identify them. But you're even scared to do that if you have BPD. I knew what was wrong with me the whole time in terms of my behavior. I knew what was unacceptable. Society has groomed us to know what's acceptable, what isn't. And you'll say, well, why do we still do it? We do it specifically because it's outside of social norm. What do you mean when you say that, Kevin? Well, what I mean is, if my emotions are not understood by the people in my environment, then it may be easier for me to pick up a plate and throw it at the wall and then say, do you hear me now? Because I know that nobody else will pick up the plate and throw it at the wall, so maybe I can relay how much pain I'm in if I do that. And there's a lot of other behaviors. I'm sure you can name a few if you're at all with me here on this, of which we know are unacceptable, right? Beautifully Broken. It's a nice name. You've been a huge part of my learning. How do we know who is the real us? Well, firstly, I'm honored to be a part of everyone's journey. That is a really cool thing. When people get better from BPD, they become amazing. I mean, they really do. We are already amazing. And just so think about the type of person you could be if you weren't held back by this stuff, okay? How do we know the real us? Isn't that a question? Self is at the center of BPD, a lack of self specifically. So that means it becomes very hard for us to see who we are. It becomes very hard for us to like ourselves. And it also becomes nearly impossible for us to validate, to know that we are good enough, that we have a place in the world. Self-validation. So we have self-identity, self-image, and self-validation. You actually have 3 issues that need to be resolved. Not just a lack of self. But I'll tell you briefly, because that is not a lesson that you can learn in a few minutes. It is a lesson that you have to identify with, literally. You have to identify with the outcome of that lesson. But I'll explain it a little bit, as much as I can. So, you are not a firefighter. You are a hero. Okay? It doesn't work that way all the time with every occupation, because you can actually be a teacher, and you could be a teacher. You could be someone who teaches, right? You are not, you are the qualities of which make up your existence in the world. You are somebody who could brighten other people's day. You are somebody who is ambitious and gets stuff done. You are somebody who's reliable. Like, these are the types of things that would be actual traits that are identity, right? Not, I'm a brother, I'm a sister, I'm a husband. Okay? You're not an accountant. You're somebody who's good with numbers, a problem solver. And you have to start distinguishing between the two things. What are you saying that you are? Most of us, unfortunately, are saying things like, I'm a loser. I'm a failure. I'll never make it. I can't get out. I can't do anything about anything. Everybody hates me. I'm hated. You're actually identifying with traits of which are perpetuating the cycle. And I don't like to say stuff like this, okay? I don't like to say to a bunch of us who might not be in remission that, hey, buddy, you are a victim. That's what you are. You're identifying as one. I mean, and you very well may have been a long time ago, and you very well may be one now. But how much of that is your responsibility and your accountability? Maybe all of it, you know? You can't change what happens to you, right? I mean, the external world's going to throw things all the time. But you can change how you deal with it. You can change how you react. You can change how you think about yourself. And maybe the outside world too. You can change that also. You don't have to think everybody's out to get you, everybody's backstabbing you. Which, I mean, even if you were in the deepest pit of hell, surrounded by all your enemies, I'm pretty sure they'd be more focused on their suffering. You know what I mean? It's very unlikely that the entire world is actually out to get you. Although I know that it seems that way. And I know that it's easier to say everybody hates me than it is to get up and do something different. I know that's true. A lot of the reasons we don't get better is because we are comfortable. We have grown comfortable with our circumstances. I am comfortable just telling people whatever that I want to say in the moment. And there's a lot of words I want to say here, but TikTok has slapped me on the wrist one too many times for talking about the deep end, if you know what I mean. So I can't talk about that too deeply. But the point is, we will say things specifically to get reactions, specifically to have other people fill the holes in our heart and our soul. And then they call it manipulative or controlling. So then we don't want to address that. No, I'm not manipulative. I'm not controlling. So either I'll keep trying to do it and not be seen, somehow not be discovered, or I'll avoid it and live in suffering and pain. There are other options. There are ways to get what you want. There are ways to figure out who you are. And who you are is what you think. As Bruce Lee said, do not ever speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. The body does not know the difference. Words have energy. They're magic. They cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Very brilliant. Very brilliant. And he said it before he passed away, and he passed away at 32. I am 38. So I'm kind of jealous of that statement because that is some seriously insightful shit, you know? Kind of like BPD doesn't define us. Well, yeah, but correct. Exactly. BPD does not define us as people. You are not your BPD. But we certainly identify with it. And that is okay if you identify with the good parts of BPD, which you haven't learned how to do if you're not in remission, probably. Instead, it's easier to identify with the I mess everything up, nobody wants me around, everybody leaves me, which are true right now. They're true. That's true. Okay? But there's other stuff going on here. BPD individuals are some of the most impressive people on the planet. We are some of the most impressive people on the planet. We are super, super intelligent, super empathetic, super passionate, super driven under the right circumstances. You don't want to get rid of that. Just the bad stuff. Katie Cat says, does medication work for BPD? I am not on any medicine, and I haven't had any episodes or splits or any symptoms in over 7 years. And it was not easy to get there. It took me 12 years to get better. But I was by myself. I didn't have anybody helping me through that. And I was trying everything. And as you are probably aware, almost nothing helps. I tried over a dozen medicines, and I got negative side effects from them. That does not mean that medicine can't help. Because medicine can help, but there is no medicine specifically for borderline personality disorder. There are medicines for symptoms. There are medicines for other conditions, and there may be some benefit to some of them. I did get a little benefit from a mood stabilizer called aripiprazole. And that kind of took the edge off a little bit, but ultimately the BPD still needed to be resolved, and it was, the effects of that, the gains were marginal. So anyway, you don't have to have medicine. It was, the effects of that, the gains were marginal. So anyway, you don't have to have medicine. 10% of the people or so that I work with are on medicine or in active therapy when they find me. So, it is what it is. But I would never say not to do something that's helping you. So if you're seeing some benefits from something, then keep doing it, As long as those benefits are healthy. Because we see benefits from our negative coping behavior, right? That's why we do it. Remember, people don't do things that don't benefit them. It's true. So we some benefit. Even if that's, I'm a victim now, so I get sympathy, for example, right? All right, we have any tips for high school freshmen? I'm assuming you mean a high school freshman who has BPD. Children with BPD, kids, anybody under 18. Very difficult life because everybody in the mental health industry, not everybody, but most people, will refuse to diagnose a child with a personality disorder. It's kind of frowned upon a little bit, and that is because the brain is not fully formed yet. So I'm going to say this. It's a controversial topic, diagnosing children with BPD. But when I'm honest with myself, after I've thoroughly investigated this, after I have studied it to the extent I have, I could have diagnosed myself at age 4. I mean, really, I could have. And the problem is that children at that age all throw temper tantrums. You know what I mean? So it's hard to distinguish, but I know myself very well. So I remember certain things, and I remember that was more than a temper tantrum. That was the warning signs of abandonment right there. And it is different than that child's temper tantrum. But that said, they don't want to do it. I think it's a liability thing. I think nobody wants to diagnose a child and then, somehow get in trouble. I believe that might be something to do with it. Maybe the American Psychological Association. Maybe they don't want to be responsible for a bunch of kids getting the diagnosis and putting that responsibility in a bunch of hands of untrained mental health professionals. When I say untrained, I mean untrained on BPD. I'm 46 and struggle with this. It's exhausting. Still trying to find out who I really am other than mom. Okay, that was very, very well articulated, Monk. That was well articulated because it tells me that you got what I said. You realized that mom is not my identity. You are somebody who is caring, who is a provider, who is a protector, who is giving, a teacher. You are an example. You are all sorts of things other than mom. And that is wrapped up into mom. So when you say I'm mom, I mean, yeah, you could identify that way as long as, you know in your head that it consists of the 25 different facets of being a successful mother, right? But that, if you just said I'm mom to me, you're like, well, I'm a mom. Well, yeah, that's great, but that's not you, your personality, your identity. It's the stuff that goes into making you who you are. I mean, you are a firefighter, right? But you're also somebody who would sacrifice themselves for someone else because they care. You are passionate. You are a passionate hero. You might be athletic and put together and capable. Like, those are identity. Those are identity traits. And you might be able to summarize that. It's like you got that classic rom-com situation where the girl's on the phone with her girlfriend and she's like, tell me about him. What's he like? And she's like, oh, he's a firefighter. And then the other girl's like, ooh. It's because we know that certain identity traits kind of go along with firefighter, just like we know certain identity traits go along with mother, right? If you say, oh, I'm a mother, people think, oh, that's a nurturing person, and I feel more comfortable around them. But you can't just identify as so-and-so's mother. You see what I mean? There's a difference in terms of, like, I'm not saying it's inappropriate if you're at a party and somebody walks up to you and says, who are you? And you say, oh, I'm Carolyn's husband, right? I mean, that does identify me to them. I'm Carolyn's husband. He's not asking me who I really am at the core of my soul. He just wants to know what it is that I'm doing here. I mean, that's a perfectly okay answer to give that person. But I'm trying to explain the concept that we fall victim to this, identifying usually with something that we have to fit into or something that provides us some substance. So when I say, before remission, I'm Carolyn's husband, that's my whole purpose in life, to be her husband. I don't get it at that point. You know what I mean? I'm just happy that I have a wife. So I'm living for her, which will produce an unsatisfactory life, strangely, for both of us. And I know that's tough. So what is the fears that are keeping us from getting better? And why is it that we struggle so hard to figure out who we really are? And I know that this part is tough to hear, but it means that we have to accept some undesirable things about ourselves. Before remission, one of the fears I had was the truth. I had to admit the truth. I had to admit that I was a controlling person. That's an identity trait I had. I had to admit that I was a manipulative person. I did it because I was scared that I'd lose them. So I was scared I'd get hurt. I did it out of fear. You know what I mean? Now, that doesn't make it any better, but I identified with so many things that were holding me back. Controlling, manipulative, abusive, victim. Or actually, I didn't identify with those things. Those were my personality traits, though. And I didn't want to believe these things about myself because I could not take any more bad news. You know what I mean? But you have to admit some of the stuff that's going on to the degree it's going on. Otherwise, you will never stand a chance at fixing it. And you won't be able to identify with the other stuff. And one of the great pieces of news here is that I know you didn't choose all of this, right? Up until now. Because now I'm telling you, you could choose to identify differently. And that's the beautiful part. BPD people who don't know who they are, I mean, that's a really weird thing to admit, right? But here's the cool part. It means you can pick and choose. I could become whatever person I would like to become at this point, something that other people don't really have the luxury of doing because they're socially accepted the way they are, so why change anything? They're not thinking, maybe I could be presidential. You know what I mean? They're not thinking that way, most people, but you have the ability to pick anything you would like to do. K May 87 says, I have BPD, just becoming self-aware and trying to accept and reflect, but struggling to express what? Probably what you feel, right? Who you are, probably struggling to express that still. So you're just becoming self-aware. You got to give yourself a little credit. You're sitting in a live at 7:21 in the morning on a Monday listening to some dude talk who you've never met about this topic so you can get better. So that's a pat yourself on the back moment. And it also makes you somebody who can improve. That's a personality trait. Somebody who can always improve, right? That's the first step right there. Being willing to admit that maybe you could be doing differently. Maybe you could be doing better. You know? Not many people go through that. Not even many neurotypical people decide maybe I should improve. You know? They're just happy that things are going well and living life and everything's great from what I could tell. I mean, people do improve. Everybody can improve and people do try. But you could make it a personality trait, a regular one. And I'll tell you, there's no limit to the distance that you can climb. Okay? I thought that once I got to remission, life would just be great and I would never have to worry again about any type of improvements. I didn't really think that deep about it, but I am astonished at how much can get better. I still am getting better and better and better. And it's because I now am somebody who always improves. I chose that and I didn't stop. Not all of us do. A lot of the people that I work with, they'll get to remission and they're just happy and they just want to relax. They don't want to constantly improve. But I'll tell you what, I couldn't see it any other way because each time I improve something, my life dramatically gets better. And then I become somebody who is obsessed with that. I never dropped that BPD obsession. I just kind of repurposed it for good. And I like it that way. Doesn't have to be that way. Not everybody does it that way. But I've always been a high achiever. I've always been somebody who aims for very high goals, and I didn't want to lose that part of myself when I beat this. So instead of trying to get someone's approval, I simply started trying to change the world, which gave me a really big purpose. You know what I mean? Hence why I do what I do now. It was very productive. So I think that is a good way to repurpose the BPD obsession. Obsess over something that you actually have control over instead of trying to obsess over somebody you can't control at all. And you'll see more of them that way, and they'll like you more too. And you'll like them more also, by the way. You'll build less resentment. Can BPD be misdiagnosed for bipolar or depression? All the time. All the time. In my 12-year journey to get better, I knew I had BPD for more than half of it, and I couldn't get a diagnosis till the last year. I've seen over 16 different mental health professionals, and I was trying desperately to get that diagnosis. Like, I thought that was going to somehow make me better. Man, was I, misguided. I mean, I thought, it's definitely this, while I'm, destroying my house and all my relationships. You don't understand, it's the BPD. It's like... And then I'm telling therapists and I'm telling doctors, and some of them would say things like, you don't want to associate with this, trust me. Some of them would say, I don't put labels on things. Others would say, well, we don't really know what it is. Really, they don't know what it is. You're damn straight you don't know. You know what I mean? Then I got it. The last year, I got a new psychiatrist, and I went in there, and I did 99% of the talking. Which is very it's not usual when you go into a psychiatry appointment or, a therapist. I mean, they do some talking, you know what I mean? But I did all the talking and I was just pushing it on her. I'm like, this is what's happening. This is why I have this, I have this, I have that, I have that, and this and that happens, and this happened and that happened, and they said this and that's not right, blah, blah, blah. It's borderline personality disorder. And at the end, she was like, yeah, I agree. You have BPD. And then she diagnosed me. And I was like, finally. And I went home and I'm like, guess what, babe? I got a diagnosis, and she's like, great. And everybody's like, great. And then nothing changed, except I couldn't get life insurance. That was really upsetting. It took me years to be able to convince a company that I was in full remission, of which, that was very hard. It was very hard. I don't think that people understand how useless it is to get the actual diagnosis. If you identify with this, that is enough to fix it. It's about fixing the behavior, in my opinion. It's not about associating with the community, which is part of the BPD problem. We want to fit in. You know what I mean? Well, let's fit in here. I got BPD. Great. You guys got BPD too? We all belong. You know what I mean? Doesn't help. I was put on, I can't ever pronounce that, so I never try. Can you repin that one, buddy? It's a medicine. Let's see. Okay. For ADHD and epilepsy, and it made me way worse. You know what? I've never heard anything good about that medicine whenever I've heard it. That's might just be a subjective experience. Maybe there are people who benefit from it. I don't know. I've never met anybody who has, personally. And all medicine's such a weird topic. You know what I mean? It's like, you kind of feel like you want to say what you want to say, but at the same time, you really don't want people to just stop taking medicine that might be working for them. So what I will say is, I have honestly never seen medicine help with BPD. I haven't. I've seen it help with depression. I've seen it help with anxiety. But at the same time, I've always kind of looked at it like mental handcuffs, you know? Like I'm locking my brain up so that I don't have to deal with things. But I have noticed that every single thing can be dealt with. And I mean mentally. You can walk yourself through almost anything if you know how. And that's the problem. Nobody knows how, and nobody knows how to teach it to someone, right? And I noticed also that you mentioned, okay, so K-May says, I am hoping to find a medicine regimen that at least regulates my mind and symptoms. Well, you know, like I said, there is no medicine for BPD, and if you're getting on a medicine, it is for a specific symptom or some other condition, okay? It is very common to get misdiagnosed and then end up on medicine. Getting diagnosed with bipolar or ADHD or all these other things. I got like a dozen diagnoses, you know? I was like massive depressive disorder, normal depression, general anxiety, a panic disorder, intermittent anger issues, bipolar. I had ADHD, ADD also, NPD, ASPD, and there are others. Like, I seriously got diagnosed with all of these different things. So like I said, if the medicine works for you, then great. But I would challenge you to say this. If your goal is to find an entire regimen of medicines for like all of these symptoms, why not do the real work to fix it, you know, mentally? Because you can fix it mentally. And then you don't have to take medicines that change your chemical, you know, makeup in your brain and all this stuff. And that's just the way I look at it. I mean, I'm sure that there are people who disagree with me. I mean, there always will be. But I like how I live the way I do, and I see many other people replicate that process. The one thing that I do not think that you should do is just stop medicine cold turkey, because that's how people have seizures. And I've seen that happen too. I've seen people hear me talk about, which is why it's such a weird topic. Because I'm saying right now that just because I don't take medicine and I'm fine, if you are taking medicine, you need to properly wean off if that's what you want to do. For some reason, the BPD mind, we strive for like perfect a lot of the times. So when people hear me say that, they're like, I could do without it, and you know, it's fine, and I won't have a seizure, and they just stop taking their medicine. And then like the next week they're in the hospital. You know what I mean? So it's irresponsible to say what I'm saying without explaining that there are risks, you know? And to be honest, when I'm in a coaching program with somebody, if you're in my remission program, we don't really talk about medicine. You'll tell me I'm on this, I'm on that, I'm on this, and then it'll never come up again unless you bring it up. Because I'm not here to give you medicine-related guidance, and that is your personal decision. And you can also get better in a program like this, whether you're on medicine or not. You know, that part doesn't matter. The medicine's not going to stop us from learning skills and perspective changes, right? So everybody's different on that one. They really are. And it's a weird thing. And then doctors all have their own personal opinions and their perspectives. And I can't imagine being like a, medicine prescribing doctor who will only see this person twice a year. And then knowing how they're struggling. Yes, I would probably give them a medicine so that maybe nothing bad will happen until I see them again. Of which we'll just keep the medicine going because that seems to then work. But I just wasn't happy on the medicines, I just wasn't happy on the medicines. They changed me as a person, which is a fear of ours in getting better. We're scared of improving because we're afraid we're going to lose what we do know about ourselves, right? That only happened for me when I took the pills. That's when I lost myself. That's when I overate. That's when I slept too much. That's when I lost my drive for intimacy. That's when I lost my ambition. That's when I became a zombie. It was the pills did that to me. That did happen. That was the only time my fears came true, Every other fear was like total bullshit. It's crazy. Crystal, I am diagnosed with bipolar and ADHD. The more I read on BPD, the more I wonder if my psych was wrong. And here's the thing. I want to say it like this. I don't think it's their fault. I think that it's simple math, okay? Approximately 3.5% of the global population suffers from borderline personality disorder. Probably about 1% or less get a diagnosis. There's so few of us that it makes sense that it would take many, many, many more years for them to really understand it enough to where they're going to train you on it when you're, in med school or whatever, right? It's an under-education problem, in my opinion. But at the same time, are you going to force every single doctor who goes to med school to understand how to treat this very obscure condition? Or are you going to try to put them in a position where they can get the diagnostic ideology under control, maybe be a problem solver and figure it out and all that, and maybe focus on the bigger things, depression, anxiety, the stuff that is more commonplace, so that maybe you can help more people? I mean, that makes sense. So I don't think it's the psychiatrist's fault, for example. But it's very easy for them to miss BPD. That's why I ended up with like 12 different diagnoses, But then something magic happens when you beat the BPD, when you conquer it, when you get to remission. All the rest of the diagnoses just disappear. All the PTSD, all that trauma, all the anxiety that you have, all the depression that you have, the bipolar mood swings that somebody thought you had. The intermittent anger issues, your panic disorder, your substance problems, they all just gone. BPD trumps everything. I can't say that enough. BPD trumps everything. It will trump your love for your partner. It will trump the medication you take. It will trump your therapeutic methodology. It will trump, your passions. It will trump any other diagnosis you have. It will become the center stage of any relationship. Your partner could be batshit crazy, but you will not know because you will be on the stage the whole time and never give them a chance to reveal themselves. I speak about it. Somebody just said it's a nightmare. It's a battle every day. It is. It is until it isn't. When you actually beat it, it is pure bliss. My life is not perfect. I have things that are wrong. I have problems. I have, sick parents. I have all these issues, right? But my life is still amazing. And nothing that's happening around me will change how I feel about myself and what I give to the world. I have purpose. I have a place. I have substantially good feelings about myself. And I'm not it's not because I'm egotistical about it. I'm not self-obsessed. Quite the opposite. I am giving and giving and giving and sacrificing, just like I always did. But something changed about those sacrifices, about that generosity. I am now doing it because it's the right thing to do. I am not doing it because I need other people to tell me how good I am. And that type of transition changes everything. Changes everything about how you live life, you know? May I ask if anything is typically prescribed for BPD? Mood stabilizers, antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds are very common. I would say 80 to 90% of the people that I work with, about 85% will say, they are, and this goes for therapy and for medicine. They are either in active therapy of some kind, some program, or they are on some type of medicine. And it's usually in one of the three that I mentioned. It's very common for this to happen. If you've been diagnosed by a doctor, what can the doctor do to fix it? The doctor only sees you for like 10, 15 minutes. If you see him for an hour, that's, on the therapeutic side usually, right? But with no specialized training or understanding, without having experienced BPD themselves, how are they going to help you with that? Well, this medicine, you've mentioned you're really depressed, and it may not make you so depressed. But I struggle to see the long-term answer there, right? Good morning, little wolf. I struggle with being unwanted. Mom didn't want, so now nobody else wants me. Well, that is the theme, and that is a revelation, and it is something to understand. My father wasn't around for me either, and that's why I abused my partners. That's the dot that needs to be connected next. That when you are screaming at your partner because they accidentally left the milk out and it's spoiled, you are screaming at your mother. You are screaming at your father from 20, 30 years ago. That's why you're so mad. And to get those dots connected is not an easy process. You left the milk out, right? You went to bed. You forgot. Wife wakes up, sees the milk out, right? She's pissed. She's pissed. She has BPD. She's super mad about the milk. You always do this. You never, all this stuff, right? She's not really mad about the milk. She's mad that she feels disrespected, and she keeps telling you to put the milk in the fridge, so she feels unheard. Well, when else did she feel disrespected or unheard? Maybe as a kid, when she wasn't validated. You know what I mean? You got to keep diving deeper. It's not enough just to say, I'm upset because the milk's on the counter. I'm also upset because they didn't listen. I'm unheard, I'm unappreciated, I'm overlooked, I'm not important, which turns into I'm not good enough. And when do you not feel good enough? First in life. Way back in the beginning. And that son of a bitch who wasn't there for me, So put the milk back in the fridge next time. You know what I mean? It's crazy how it works. And it's a very tough thing to articulate because there's all these other defense mechanisms. If I admit that I'm not really that angry at my partner, then there's nobody else to be angry with because I know it's unreasonable to continue to be mad at my father for 35 years, right? Like at this point, I know I'm an adult and have to take some responsibility, and it would be very unreasonable for me to turn around and say, I'm sorry, Carolyn, the reason I just exploded on you is really, I meant that for my father like 30 years ago. That's really what it was. So, we're good, right? And it might happen next time too. And it's hard for us to take that weight because we see it as blame. We think somebody always has to be at fault. For some reason, the words accountability and responsibility are directly tied to fault, blame, shame, guilt, embarrassment. And I don't understand how that happens in terms of the whole society doing it, because that is how the society has groomed us. Who's responsible here? Shame on you. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter so much everything. Should some people lose their jobs because they've made a critical error? Well, maybe if you can't be responsible with this job, then you might need to lose it. You know what I mean? Should somebody leave a partner who is residually cheating? I mean, obviously, you don't want to sit around and get beaten every weekend by your boyfriend. You know what I mean? So there are times when it's appropriate to say, there has to be a consequence. But if I was cheated on, if Carolyn turned into the Wicked Witch of the West and the worst happened, what's a better life trajectory for me after that? To blame her constantly and be a victim and then make everybody else pay in the future and make my future partner pay because this one couldn't be trusted, right? Or is it for me to resolve the issues and move on? That takes accountability and responsibility, but we're scared because of the blame. We're scared, right? Crystal says, I cannot imagine. I think this fear is ultimately makes me not speak up at my appointment. Okay. Yes. Another fear that we have in getting better is being honest at the appointment. You go in to see a doctor. You go in to see a psychiatrist. You go in to see a therapist. You are terrified to tell them the truth. You really are. You're scared to tell them authentically what it is. Honestly, most of the time before remission, I was scared to even say it to myself. I didn't want to admit that my behavior was unacceptable. I wanted to say it was everybody else. And then when I started admitting it and I started trying to get help, I thought, oh, great, now I'm on board with getting help. I'm going to get better. Jesus, man. I'd go in there and manipulate the hell out of them. I wouldn't tell them the truth, and I was scared to, because what if they lock me up? What if I get committed? What if I, lose my businesses because I can't keep up with them because I'm here? What if they drop me as a client because I'm too crazy? They'd say, so how you doing on that thing we talked about last week? It's hard that I can't say everything here. I hate it. I'd be doing myself a great deal of harm physically, if you know what I'm saying. And they'd say, how you doing on that? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's good. I haven't done that in like a couple weeks. Everything's good there. In reality, I just did it like 5 minutes ago before I came in here, I can't tell you that. I can't say that to you because I'm scared, because you are something called a mandated reporter, and we all know that, We all know that, and we know that like your liability here is greater than your care for me. So that is specifically why I didn't go counselor, because I could have gone counselor. I've got the schooling for it, could have gone therapy, got the schooling for it. I went coach because people could tell me everything and there's no consequence. You just get help, and it's a place where you're not judged. That was an issue I had. I was scared of the judgment. I actually wanted the approval of the therapist, of the doctor. I wanted them to think how great this guy is, how great, how smart you are. Fuck getting better. Tell me how great I am. You know what I mean? That's what was happening in there. Avoiding the truth, grooming them into a position where they're going to tell me whatever I want to hear. And I definitely don't want to think it's my fault. You know what I mean? That's a problem. I was scared of that. I was scared of being at fault. And it's because I felt at fault my whole life. It's because I felt at fault when I was young. It's because I was punished when bad things happened to me. Didn't get the love, didn't get the validation, didn't get the attention. In my case, I was very literally punished. A really bad thing happened to me when I was 6 by a neighbor. And when my parents found out, they pretended like it didn't happen. They let him go. No consequence for him. And then they grounded me for 3 weeks because they didn't know what to do. They're like, oh, shit. We got to teach him how not to go into other people's houses. And ironically, they're the ones who taught me that I should be trusting of other people. I mean, they always said the trite expression, don't trust a stranger, don't talk to a stranger. But at the same time, I watched my mother have immense compassion for even the most vile people. She saw the good in everybody, so I did too. I didn't think anything bad would happen. Anyway, what is remission? There are, and good morning. I'm glad you guys are here. Remission. 2 definitions. The classic psychological definition is less than 5 of the 9 symptoms for a period of 6 months. Okay? But that's still hell on earth. That's still suffering. My definition of remission, and I call it full remission, is no symptoms, no episodes, no splits. And that is because it is possible. It is possible. You can live that way. And I know this because I am walking, talking proof of it. You can't offend me anymore. You can't insult me. You could try. You could try right now if you'd like. You could say some ugly, awful things about my face. How stupid I look. How dumb I sound. You're not going to impact how I feel about myself. To me, that's full remission. I'm not ever going back. I am never going back to the inappropriate behavior, and I'm never going back to a place where other people have control over how I feel about myself. I could never let that be my reality again. That is, there is 0 chance of relapse in full remission because you see clearly. You understand clearly. And you also have the most powerful skill that you could have, which is the ability to change anything you want. When you get that skill down, nothing matters anymore in terms of the negative stuff. You just skip right over it. Oh, that doesn't work. I'm not going to do that anymore. This will work better. Let me try that. And you're not afraid. Because you have that skill, you've seen it work, you've beaten some stuff, and now it's like, I can beat all of it. I was afraid of this, and it turned out to be fake. Like the fear, it was a fake fear. It's almost like our fears are excuses. You know what I mean? That's the only way I can really explain it. I've really struggled over the years to explain to those people who aren't in remission that the fears are bullshit. I say it and they're just like, yeah, okay, I can see why he might say that and maybe they are to him, but I still am worried about this. And there's no way I would do that because then this person would leave me. And that's an excuse is what that is, which is probably the best way to explain it. It is. The fears are excuses so that we don't have to change. What is fear? What is anxiety? Anxiety forms in the reptilian brain way before we were Homo sapiens. It is meant to inspire action. You are worried in this reptilian mind. Where's the next meal going to come from? Because back then, we didn't have, HelloFresh developing meals to the door and, easy access to any food that you could possibly want. Grocery stores and gas stations and DoorDash and we didn't have accessibility to bananas. I mean, back then you'd be like, wow, banana, that is like, I'll pay $1,000 for that. That looks exotic. This banana's so great. You know what I mean? We didn't have that access. And we were worried that we wouldn't get a meal. So what does the anxiety do? It's a sign. Oh, I'm getting hungry. Where's the next meal going to come from? I need to do something about this. Today, what do? Oh, we feel anxiety? Take this pill. I mean, the anxiety is a sign. The depression is a sign. These are warning signs, like check engine lights in your car telling you something has to change. But instead, I'm too scared. I'm too scared to change anything. They might leave. This might happen. That might happen. I mean, you live your whole life like that, never having any joy. You need to listen to the anxiety and the fears and say, this is a sign that something needs to change. And then you need to change it. And then you won't have that fear. You won't have that anxiety. You won't react the way you do. You just need that one skill. The one skill that's most important. There's a bunch of little ones that you'll learn on a journey to get better. I teach them, and they're great because you can't learn the big skill right away. You know what I mean? Eventually you get it, though. And then life is amazing because you could change anything you want to change. You could do anything that you want to do. It's very hard to give people that skill, though. It's very hard. You have to get some wins under your belt first. It's It's hard to choose to do something scary over something comfortable, is it not? And thanks for the shout out, Travis. I really appreciate that. Travis is a good friend of mine now. He did do my program. That is how we met. But now he's a friend. And most of the people that go through my program end up friends. Travis is a very good friend. And I like you a lot, Travis. You got a lot of good qualities, man. Things that... Isn't it tough, like, when you see someone who's struggling with this and you know that they have good and they can't connect the dots on that? You know, then if you're their partner, life becomes about validating them. No, honey, you're not so bad. You know, it's so weird how it works. It's like, we'll make a mistake as a BPD person, right? And then the guilt that we feel, we just hurt somebody somehow. The guilt we feel then takes the precedence. Instead of doing something to make their life better, we want them to know how much we feel so bad for what we did. Until they say, oh, poor Kevin, you poor thing. Isn't it? It's so strange, though, because I had all these good talents the whole time, and they're telling me these talents in that moment. You know what I mean? The things that I should be telling myself, like, they're telling me. And I forced them to do it after I did something that was unacceptable. Anyway, coping mechanisms. They're everywhere for us. Good morning, Desi. I was diagnosed with BPD 10 years ago, and I have no idea what it was. I still don't fully understand. That's normal. That's normal. A lot of people don't understand what it is. A lot of people don't understand how to get out of it. I'm sorry, because I know that this means there's been a lot of suffering. But something's guided you to the right place at this moment, today, at this part of your life. Clearly, your awareness is climbing, right? Because now you're admitting, look, I don't even understand this, and here I am trying to figure out why, what, how. You know what I mean? Why me? Why me? And you're over that part where you're denying it. You're over that part where it's a foreign concept that you might have to do something about it. My guidance for you would be, have you fully admitted all of the ways that BPD is impacting your life? Because that part matters too. You know, we can't just admit that we have it. We have to admit the destruction that it has caused and the destruction that it is causing. And you have to do it, you could do it whatever way you want. Let me rephrase. I would recommend you do it without accepting blame or guilt. Because the next phase, we say, oh my God, everything wrong in my life was my fault. I'm such a terrible person. How can I live with myself now? Listen to me very clearly when I say this. This is an important thing that you should all take home with you today. If I felt guilt, shame, blame, or embarrassment as a primary emotion based on all of the things that I have done, we would not be here right now, because I could not deal with that. Thank you, Kristen. I could not live with that. I have done too many bad things. I have hurt too many people. Admitting it was terribly painful. It was devastation, right? And I suffered like that for like a year. That was unproductive. And I punished everybody else throughout that year too. Everybody who loved me, everybody who cared about me. Sometimes it is okay to live a little bit for other people, and that would be the time to do it, where you say to yourself, oh man, I'm responsible for all the stuff that's happened. That's not good. Okay, let me not punish the people that I love, the people who love me. Because what do we do in that moment? Remain a victim? Garner attention that way? Sympathy? Stuff that will temporarily make me feel like somebody cares, but ultimately just wither away? Or do we become a warrior? Do we go to battle and fight a dragon so that no one in our life has to suffer anymore? I think that sounds a lot better. And that is fucking scary. I get it. Okay? I get it. That's why I do the tech support. That's why I'm more involved with my clients. It's because it's easier to fight the dragon when you're not alone. And I have fought a lot of dragons at this point. I can't slay it for you. You know what I mean? I can't slay it for you, but I'll put on the armor with you, and I will go to battle with you. And I will be there in the dark moments, and I will be there when you fall down, and I will be there the entire way, and I will help you fix this. You see what I mean? The way that you need it to be fixed. I will help you the way that you need to be helped. But you do need to suit up. And I know it's a scary thing. I know you're worried about losing yourself, losing the good parts, all that kind of stuff. I know that. I know. But is it really that much more scary to turn around and face your demons than it is to just constantly run from them? Because you will keep running, hoping the whole time something's going to change. And it won't. It won't change. Nothing changes. If nothing changes, man, and that has to be your mantra. The next time you're upset about it, the next time you're worried, the next time you're scared, the next time you're nervous, what do you always do when that happens? Maybe don't do that. Maybe do anything else. Take a dart, throw it at the dartboard, and wherever it lands, do that instead. You know what I'm saying? But don't handle it the way you've been handling it, because it doesn't work. And thank you, Amit. I appreciate that. Those of you who have been asking questions, if we missed your question, I am very sorry for that. This is not intentional. I get very intense and very, I could fall down the rabbit holes sometimes. I do want your questions answered, though, so please do reach out. There's an email button in my profile. I'm glad you're here too, Desi. You know, there's a lot of good people that show up here every day to just try and be better. And that is such a noble goal. That's such a noble goal. Don't be shy. Reach out. Tell me your story. If you don't know what to say, just say hi. I'll know what to say to you. You don't have to do it alone, and there are answers to each part of this. There are. I would be honored to be a part of your journey. I don't think that you should have to fight alone. I had to. There was nobody there to fight that with me. No one. And that was so hard. That was so painful and so lonely of a process. I'm tearing up a bit. It's because just because I'm better now doesn't mean that I don't remember what it felt like. And I know that there are 56 people in here. I don't know where you are, each one of you. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you've experienced, but I know what I did, and I know I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So I am sorry because you didn't ask for it, but you need to start looking at this differently. It's not you. It is the BPD. It is. The BPD is the problem. And feeling the shame for something that was absolutely out of your control is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and nobody's going to tell you that. Instead, they're going to say, stop behaving this way. Oh, he's a loose cannon. He's unreliable. Oh, don't talk about that around him. There is no fucking help. The friends that are there trying to help don't know what to do. The doctors that are treating you don't understand the condition. The therapists that are listening to you don't suffer from it and didn't find a way out. And it's lonely. It's lonely. And then people say, why are you like this? Well, I'm like this because nobody feels like I feel. You know, and they just want us to stop being such a big baby. And it's easy for you to say, dude, because, you learned the skills that I didn't learn. I remember when we were kids, I watched you and your dad passing that ball back and forth, and I wanted it so bad. I wanted it so bad. Instead, my father was in a room drinking and smoking pot and, telling me tomorrow, we'll do it tomorrow. It's always tomorrow, next week, not now. I can't do that. I'm pissed off. And then now you have the audacity to tell me as an adult that I should just behave. While I watched the entire world get everything and I got nothing. You know what I mean? That's why I'm like this. So have some compassion. I know that the condition is very tough for the partners and the friends out there. I know it's very hard to deal with us before remission, but try and remember that we didn't ask for this. Try and remember that it's no different than getting diagnosed with cancer or something like that. And if I could control it back then, I would have. Okay? So guys, I am going to end the live today. We are at the end of our live this morning. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for caring about yourself or your partner or whoever it may be enough to sit here and listen to me for an hour. Because the answers are real. You don't have to live this way. I believe in everybody. I really do. I have not met a person with BPD that can't get better. Now, the only question is, are you ready? Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow, Tuesday, 7 a.m. US EST. No matter where you are in the world, make sure you get your time zones right. If you need help, reach out. I'll reply. I answer all my emails personally. Have a good day, guys, and try to be nice to yourself.